and welcome to Let's Talk. We are Mike and Amy, and we are super excited to be here tonight. And you guys are in for a special treat.
You sure are. We get the pleasure of Dr. A joining us this evening, and I know all of you know him through the Habits of Health system and the Habits of Health book and your life book that you're working through. And we are excited that Dr. A's next book is going to be coming to us on November 13th. And Amy and I have had the pleasure to read through the book on a pre-launch, and we can just tell you that this is a book that we believe that anybody that's looking to optimize their health should have in their hand. But two of our great friends and fellow health coaches, Arden and Allie, are here with us tonight, and they have also had the opportunity to pre-read the book. And I know that they are super excited for the opportunity ahead of them tonight. They are going to sit here with you tonight and have a conversation with Dr. A about the new book, what it means to you as someone looking to optimize their health, and how this can bring value to you. So, Allie, Arden, have fun. We're excited to just sit here and listen in.
Thanks, Mike and Amy. I appreciate it. We are so excited for tonight's conversation because this one matters for every single person who has ever said, I just want to feel like myself again. So, what I love about My Prescription for Life is that it gives people hope and direction in a world that feels really confusing when it comes to health. This isn't another diet book, it's a blueprint for understanding how your body actually works and how to reclaim control over your health, your energy, and your future. The tone is so hopeful and encouraging and really reminds us of how much control we actually have over our health. I lost 20 pounds 5.5 years ago. And I feel better than ever. I was so tired of feeling run down, sluggish, and puffy, and not knowing what to do about it. And then since losing the weight, I've gotten much more consistent with strength training because I now understand how vitally important maintaining our precious muscle mass is as we age. So that's a little bit about me. Allie?
Hey y'all, my name's Allie Gant, and like Arden, I've been a coach for about 5.5 years. We didn't know each other prior to becoming coaches. I didn't know Dr. Abe. I'm so glad we all do. And I lost 50 pounds back in 2020. But as I went back and got back into my daily life and got busy, I put some weight back on. And so I ended up trying the GLP-1, and I had a messy start. Finally found the right formula for me. But what I've learned is that this up and down journey means that you have to build those healthy habits while you're using the tools that we have in our toolbox. And a GLP-1 is just one of those things. And same with Optavia. So there's a golden window for you to take in the lessons when you're losing the weight and getting stronger. Dr. A's new book, My Prescription for Life, is more than a read. It's a manual for real transformation. It takes the science of how our bodies work, the mindset of how change actually happens, and blends it into a step-by-step path anyone can follow. I'm so excited for clients and coaches to get to read this. It's awesome. Arden and I've gotten to see it too. So Dr. A, thanks for writing something that's not just about living longer, but about living better. And so let's dive in. And before we get started, let's watch a little video to help us.
What if better health wasn't about willpower or perfection, but about understanding how your body truly works? This is the entire prescription for life, a simple, science-backed approach to feeling better, potentially living longer, and finally making peace with food, movement, and metabolism. It's not about quick fixes. It's about real tools, like the GLP-1s, used wisely, making small shifts that create big impact, and a deeper connection to what your body actually needs. Because when you stop fighting yourself and start working with your biology, everything changes. More energy, less struggle, a future that feels good. You don't need another diet. You need a roadmap for life. And I will share with you my almost 25 years of experience in helping people create long-term optimal health and well-being. Let's get started.
Okay. All right, Dr. Anderson, you ready for some questions?
Absolutely, good ladies. I'm really excited, and that is the goofiest picture I've ever seen of me. But you know what? That's okay. My girls saw it and just cracked up. They were just, I mean, literally cracking up. So, but you know what? This is about having fun. And Allie, when it was talking about your biology and really understanding and working with, I know that you've come to that realization. You've been very successful in business, and you can lead people all over the place, but leading ourselves sometimes is difficult in this crazy world. So yeah, tonight I just here, you ladies have both had an opportunity to pre-read the book and just here to answer questions. Hopefully, by the end of this half an hour, people really have a good understanding of what's required really to create health in yourself.
Yes, totally agree. And by the way, the artwork work in the book is phenomenal. It really brings it to life. So I just think it's beautiful. All right. So you said this book is about freedom beyond GLP-1 medications. What does freedom look like for someone currently on the drugs?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because we talk about hall passes, and it's been used in many different frameworks. But hall pass initially was intended for kids in school. If they had to go to the restroom or they have to go to the nurse's office, they get a special pass to be able to walk during the while classes are going on. Well, that's really what the GLP-1 medicines are. They're a hall pass, but they only last. They take you to your destination, but only for a short period of time if you don't do the other things that are necessary. So one of the things when they came out and we kind of looked at, where do they fit? I was as curious as anybody. I recognize and realize that they are something outside of us. And the one principle I've known for the last 25 years is I've really looked at what it takes to require health. It's an inside job. So anything on the outside, I don't care how good it is by itself, it cannot change our inside. Inside has to change over time, and it requires a system, it requires support, it requires being part of a community where you can work with like-minded people. Behavior is determined by underlying structure. All those things are the prerequisites, and I've been studying those for 25 years, and they have not changed one iota. These medications are better than anything before them. They work better. They relatively have the side effects as a whole are relatively less as compared to some of the earlier drugs. Less than 3% stayed on them because they were so horrific in terms of their side effects, and they didn't really work that well. And they always had to have at the bottom lifestyle change. That's why I wrote the initial Habits Health System. Without changing your lifestyle, there is no lasting lifelong transformation. It requires that. So, but for people that are on them, most people right now, first of all, there's 25 to 50 million people that are thinking about going on the GLP-1s right this second. 10 million plus people are on them. And there's a whole bunch of people that have gone on them and been disappointed and come off them, like almost 70% of people. So the reality is if you're on them right now, most people are really scared because they know if they come off them, 70% are going to gain their weight back. They also know that probably they've changed their body composition because they haven't been as vigilant as they've needed to with their lean mass. So many people, even though you may be losing weight, unfortunately, you're losing some visceral fat, which is the bad fat, but you're also losing lean mass. When we lose lean mass, that is the long-term determinant of metabolic health, metabolic optimization, as well as critical for longevity. So when we look at health span and lifespan, for those to be close to each other, so in other words, you live your whole life in a great state. I was in Galicia, Spain last month, interviewed a 102-year-old, and this lady is feisty. I mean, she's in love with life. She didn't want anybody to help her. She was her day. She was on film. And that attitude is important to be able to be around here for over 100 years. And that attitude is something that I've spent now a quarter of a century working on awakening people and then equipping them with the things they need. And it requires a whole symphony. It's a bunch of different parts that are necessary to truly create and maintain optimal health, especially in the world we live in. In Galicia, Spain, which is the first blue zone for Spain, which means people that live over 100, 12% of their population lives over 100. They have one of the longest lifespans in Europe. It's very clear. We evaluate what are the things they do. Well, it's about community. It's about basically moving. It's about eating healthy food, no processed food, and putting them in position where they don't need those drugs there because they actually live very differently. Now in Madrid, which is a modern urbanized city, they're in trouble. And you can see fast food signs everywhere, people sitting, not moving as much, using transportation systems. But the bottom line is the GLP-1 medicines, I believe, are the hall pass that a lot of people need. Susceptibility is really important. Susceptibility to ultra-processed food, unhealthy ultra-processed food is all around us. And about a third of the population is highly susceptible to that food. And once we look at you and see, when you do a small little quiz that's in the book, basically we'll find out how susceptible. If you're highly susceptible, that's why you failed multiple times before. And unless you have help, like the GLP-1s, it's very hard to get into momentum, to see enough gain that it overcomes the gap between where you are currently in your health and where you want to go. So that was a long answer to a short question, but let's go.
We've got more.
Well, we got more, and I'm going to hop around a little bit, Allie, based on what he was talking about. We talk a lot about muscle loss and metabolic slowdown. You write a lot about that in your book. How can people protect their metabolism while using the GLP-1s?
Yeah, well, there's several mechanisms. One that you can't fight is your age. As you're getting older, you're going to have sarcopenia. You are going to lose muscle just because change in testosterone and estrogen and all the key hormones, growth hormone. So there's a tendency for people to lose muscle. And so that's why this becomes even more important. We talk about people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s when they go on these medicines. But the bottom line is, in order to maintain muscle, you need to have adequate protein. It has to be highly bioavailable. One of the things we've done within our mission is we've developed specific branched chain amino acids with leucine, which is a key protein synthesis stimulator, which helps actually synthesize and start the signaling for protein to be grown. Second, lots of high quality protein. And the third most important, you can eat all the protein you want, but motion. You have to have motion, and specifically weight resistance training. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym and build huge muscles. What it does mean, though, is that you need to build strength within your muscles. And that's actually key because, we're kind of shifting in our mission towards optimizing metabolic health. And as we do that, we know this. We know that wherever you are, if you're in your 50s, you want to make sure you're training at a level so that when you're 70s, you can still lift and put your suitcase up above in the plane. I can't tell you how many times I have to help people in their 50s and 60s put their suitcases up because they don't have the muscle strength. And so without that, and that is one of the biggest fears in the GLP world, is that it does not help you lose weight. It suppresses your appetite. If you're not eating the right things and you're, instead of having a half box of Dunkin' Donuts, you're having just one half of one, you're still stimulating your insulin. And when we stimulate our insulin, bottom line is you can't burn fat. Lipolysis cannot happen. And so when insulin level's high, it blocks the ability for fat. So what do? We burn the only other thing that's available, and that is muscle. Muscle, basically protein, breaks down and can be turned through gluconeogenesis into sugar and used as an energy source. So it's so critical early on. And we're going to talk a little bit about why I named the book what I named it and the different parts of it, because it's absolutely essential that we focus on protecting our muscle as one of the key ingredients of change that has to occur while you're using these medications.
So good. I'm like fixated on this. All right, Dr. A. So you emphasize talking about, what to do when you're being tempted by all these things in the world, and then using the medication. So you emphasize radical responsibility and conscious awareness. What does that look like in practice for someone rebuilding their health?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I used, and I've been writing about health. I mean, I was a critical care physician. I took care of people that had significant metabolic dysfunction. I mean, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease. I trained at Cleveland Clinic and did open hearts. So I was at the very far spectrum. But what I recognize and realize now is we move up, that metabolic dysfunction actually occurs way before there are any symptoms. In fact, it's very much like, well, high blood pressure is one of the symptoms of metabolic dysfunction. And basically, probably our insulin level goes up maybe 5-10 years before our blood sugar even goes up. So, what we traditionally think, even for physicians today, they check your fasting blood sugar. And if your fasting blood sugar is under 100, they think you're good. Well, you may not be good. Your insulin level may already be up, and your insulin level is going up in order to maintain your blood sugar under 100, but you're already starting to show malaise, fatigue, dysfunction, that fog, that lack of mental clarity, and all these things over time if we don't address them. So yeah, it starts with radical responsibility, but for most people, they're overwhelmed. So basically, that's where the GLP-1 medications, and if you look at the book, you can see on the cover, basically, it shows a lady. Let's see where I got to do backwards. I can't. Where's my finger? Here's my finger. Yeah. So anyway, over here, she's thinking about it. She's getting on, the Ozempic pen, so to speak. Oops. Let me get over there. And then here.
You're doing it right.
Is that good? Can you see it?
Yeah.
And then basically,
Got it. Yes.
She's starting to feel a little better, and then you can see her flying off. we need to start momentum. We need some wins. Self-efficacy comes when we have a positive outcome experience. So when people start on the medications, if they're right for them, by the way, the book is set up. We talk about the toxic world. We basically then talk about this weight revolution because everybody's talking about AI and GLP-1s.
Mhm.
Third part, are these drugs right for you? Because there's a balance, and I've kind of changed how I've thought about them over the last couple of years. But what I was going to say is one of the things I did, rather than just take the research on nutrition and what's good for you, what's not good for you, I actually wore a GLP monitor. I actually have it on. You can't see it, it's under my shirt, but I wear it because it creates instant accountability. And I highly suggest for people, I mean, you don't need to get one. You can do a finger stick. You can just follow the low glycemic charts, which keep you from eating things that are full of, you don't eat any sugar is the take home message. And stay away from starches. In fact, we know that protein is absolutely essential for our health and our life. Healthy fats are. Carbohydrates are relatively elective. I mean, you do not need carbohydrates to live. Now, we want to have vegetables, we want to have fiber, we want to do some of those things because they have lots of nutrition and phytocompounds in them that are healthy for us. But the reality is getting away from sugar. So I wore this and wore it, and I know a lot about health. And yet I lost 15 pounds over a year by just really focusing on not having these spikes. In other words, not eating anything that really elevated my blood sugar, which in turn elevates your insulin. So my insulin level, my waist circumference is the same as it was when I was in high school. And that happened naturally by being accountable to it. And so for people that struggle, well, I think the drugs play a role, but they're basically, they have a time expiration on them. They last about a year. After about a year, their effect really, really becomes much less. And if you go off them, you gain 70% of your weight back. And if you didn't pay attention to the prescription for now, or doing the things that are necessary when you're on them, working with a coach in the community and eating the proper nutrition and the different amazing products and stuff that we have, you basically are probably going to lose muscle and you're going to lose the lean mass. We know this in a recent research study that we remined the data. We're showing in the 16 weeks basically a preservation of 98% of lean mass and a 14% reduction of visceral adiposity and protecting muscle. So there's a bunch that goes into it. And what's nice about it, the book will help you decide whether they're right for you. And you'll sit down with your coach and decide if they are right for you. Then the next section is prescription for now, which means, yeah, you're taking a prescription, but you're also starting to learn the tenets of healthy habits that are necessary for long term. If they're not right for you, basically, then you move right to prescription for life, which is all about the premise, the latest thinking, and all the key macro habits, setting you up for the future so that you now have and you can read this in a day or two. It's not like the Habit Cell System, which is really a full out course for the rest of your life. This is designed to contemplate. It's a primer. And what that means is this can really, if you read this, or do the digital copy, or on Amazon, there'll also be the Kindle, and I'm going to the studio in a couple of weeks to do the audio version as well. Bottom line, listening to this and then sitting down with your coach and deciding whether the medications are right for you. And if they're not right for you, then going right into the prescription for life. Now gives somebody, this is kind of like the Bible. And I was talking to a group of physicians and said, literally, if you're going to write a script for the GLP-1s, they need to have this book at the same time given to them. While they're waiting for getting the prescription filled, they need to read it. So there's not missteps. They're not worse their metabolic health. They're putting themselves in a position to protect their muscle. They're starting to learn what to eat. They're understanding the things of gastroparesis that are going to slow down your gut. And then the other beautiful thing that I started talking, and by the way, I wrote this book before we even shifted to focusing on metabolic health. This is all about metabolic health. So I've always kind of prided myself in it being a visionary on the leading edge of where you need to go. And you need to change your habits. And so the hall pass that they give you, it's the antidote to highly processed food that's really, really unhealthy. And at the same time, putting you in position. And we know this. If in the prescription for now section, if you're eating healthy, if you're moving more, if you're sleeping better, if you're working with your coach to reduce your stress, your results will be more dramatic. Just taking the shot doesn't guarantee results. I think, Allie, you had a similar experience.
Yeah.
You really need to have all the components together. And I've always approached it just like in critical care. I used to I took care of the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all the systems together, because the body isn't like three blind men and an elephant. It's literally about coherence of making sure that your physiologic, your emotional, and your cognitive health are all working in unison, and you're kind of the conductor. And the book kind of puts you in position, and then working along with your coach who will understand this material because they've been studying it. You guys have been coaches over 5 years, so you know everything in here.
It's so good.
Absolutely. And this is a perfect segue too, because I want to ask you, I mean, we know that so many people are really worried about regaining the weight once they are done with the medication. So what would you say would be a healthy off ramp? What would that look like when someone is ready to transition off this medication?
Yeah, well, one thing that I'm absolutely convinced of, and I started writing about it when I started the book, is microdosing. You don't. I hate to say this, and I'm not bashing pharmaceuticals, and thank God we at least have someone that's going to get the prices down. Put it this way, Denmark. I was in Copenhagen in the fall. There's Copenhagen's economy, and then there's the pharmaceutical company that makes Ozempic financial, and they're ridiculously expensive to start with. So that's going to come down. But the bottom line is, if you understand how they work and know that you don't need to take a shotgun to kill a flea. You can use much lower doses that just suppress your appetite depending on how susceptible you are. So if you need just a little edge, you can use a much lower dose, which will not have as high side effects. You don't need to freeze the gut. I mean, that's what we're doing. Take a dose 10 to 20 times heavier than basically the normal GLP is released by your ileum for the ileal brake in the distal ileum, the small intestine, and in the proximal part of the colon. And it's basically released by these enterocells that actually release and suppress your appetite naturally when you eat healthy food that's full of fiber and the food actually gets down there. Ultra processed food gets absorbed proximally, never gets it down to where the ileal brake is, so you never really get a release of the GLP-1s. But you don't need 20 times. When you do that, you're going to stop your gut, and that's why you're going to be nauseated and throw up and have all these horrendous side effects that are actually direct effects of how the drug works. So microdosing right from the beginning, so you're never going on these horrendous doses while you're learning the prescription for life and prescription for now, makes a lot more sense, much less side effects. A lot of people come off the drug because of the complications, and the side effects are just so dramatic, and they just don't need. And then the other part is for people, let's say you're going, you're doing well, you've lost your weight, you're learning the habits, you're getting healthier, and let's say you're going with the family on a cruise and you've been off the drug or almost down to nothing. Hey, it's okay to take it with you, and then just take a micro dose, just enough so when you're in the floating cafeteria, because that's what a cruise ship is. In fact, I actually have pictures I showed in some slides where they pretty much say this is the happiest place on the planet, and it's in the cafeteria, and it's just this worship of these huge buffets that are full of all this unhealthy food. And if you're going to be in that environment, basically then having a little microdose, just enough to give you an edge, especially in the first year or so, that's okay too. As long as you're using it responsible, knowing the end point. The end game is to come off, right? Come off that thing. See her flying off. Shoot, I gotta get better at this. I don't know. Anyway, she's flying off the thing, because you don't need them forever.
You remind me, Dr. A, and I'm going to ask one last question, but you'll remember this. So like a year and a half ago, we were on a panel together, and I was talking about how miserable I was on my GLP-1, and it's because I've been prescribed such a large dose, and I was just like, I'm miserable, I'm miserable, I'm miserable. We got off stage, and we were at like the little coffee table, and Dr. A's like, you don't have to take that much of the medicine. Why don't you just back off of it? And I was like, no one has said that to me. And so the microdosing, absolutely, it changed my life. It just takes that little edge off, and it is very, very life changing. So I love that. I love that you were there for me in that moment, and now you're there for everybody in that moment with this book. So here's my last question. If the reader remembers only one thing from this book, what do you hope it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, to make the right decision, because you may not need the drug. In fact, if we weigh, that's what is the drug right for you, is we weigh wherever your metabolic health is versus using the side effects of the drug. If your metabolic health is way off and you're suffering, you're already having a fatty liver, you've got basically visceral adiposity, your blood pressure's up, you have metabolic syndrome, then for a short period of time, the drug, and you failed many times on diets or on lifestyle changes, then the drug's probably right for you. If
Mhm.
you're basically just 10, 15, 20 pounds or you're 25 years old, you really shouldn't need the drug. And if we're using the drug for vanity, that's a big, big mistake, really big mistake. And so it's really important to actually use the book to decide, do I need them? Because as you know, both you guys, when you very first started, the drugs weren't released for being overweight or obese. So basically, you did it the old-fashioned way with the habits of health, with the community, with using these very amazing fuelings, and basically a coach. And so you may not need them. You may go right from when you evaluate, think, I'm going right to prescription for life. I don't need these. So you want to know that because, by the way, you're eliminating, I just told you this, you're eliminating the lean mass loss. You're maximizing the visceral fat loss. You were targeting visceral adiposity, the engine of all disease. And you're starting right from the beginning to learn the habits of health, healthy nutrition, movement. So if you don't really need them, then great. Let's do it without. If you do need them, then let's use them responsibly. So we protect working with your coach. So we protect muscle, we protect lean mass. And so you have a great experience knowing that if you do those things right, you're going to have more augmented. By the way, most people don't realize this. You don't reach a healthy weight on these drugs. Very few people reach a healthy weight. You still have a BMI of around average 30 or more. With using the prescription for life along with the medications, you'll see augmentation. There's great studies that support when you add movement, you're augmenting and you're going to reach a closer to a healthy BMI. And if you use all 6 macro habits and use the community and the coach, you have a really good chance of being successful. And the more important part, in transition, as you said, so many people are fearful of coming off and they're staying on the medication for
Mhm.
life. And that is not a good recipe because we have no idea how these drugs work over a long period of time.
Mhm. So,
Wow. Dr. A, thank you so much for leading the way, for writing this book. We are all going to benefit so very much from it. Everyone will. So we can't wait for the official release date on Thursday.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. And everybody, let's go get a haircut. Let's go get healthy.
Thank you so much, guys. What an amazing conversation. And I just love that we are leading the way in meeting everyone where they are, making sure that they are equipped with the tools they need to be able to not only reach a healthy weight, but to then be able to turn that into a lifestyle that they can sustain. So thank you so much for this tool, Dr. A. I can't wait for it to get into everybody's hands.
Yeah, I love
Right.
the question that you asked. What does Dr. A want everyone to get out of the book? And is to make the right decision, right?
Yeah.
Now you have some tools to really look at and make those decisions.
So join us
So
again
excited.
next week for another amazing episode of Let's Talk, where we talk about what's for dinner, this or that. And remember, all of these are recorded. They're on YouTube. They're on our podcast. So you can plug in. If I know we went through a lot tonight, if there's some things that you really want to tap into, come back and watch that recording. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Let's Talk.